This is the video I hoped I would never have to make. In fact, this all happened a few weeks ago, and I've been contemplating whether or not I should even share my story. I don't want to seem like I'm complaining, and I definitely don't want to scare off new sellers coming to the eBay platform. I try my best to keep this channel very positive with an educational mindset, but I also want to be real, and I want to share the good times and the bad times. I want to talk about how amazing it is to sell on the eBay platform, but I am also very aware that eBay has its own problems. The three stories I'm about to share with you are actually all very minor issues. Like if you're running any business at any scale, you'll be dealing with these problems every day, if not every hour. The problem lies with the fact that we as eBay sellers, we do not make the rules, we can't change the rules, and we are at the mercy of eBay's discretion. We just have to play by the rules, which is totally fine. It's what I agreed to when I started listing items on the eBay platform. But the lack of seller support on the eBay platform took these three minor issues and turned them into complete nightmares. I want to give you a quick disclaimer. There are most likely going to be a bunch of comments from people saying I should have done this or that they did this in a similar situation. Now, some of this advice will be good. However, a lot of the advice will be incorrect at the very best. I'm going to share my exact stories, exactly what I did, and exactly what I would do in the future in these situations. But I highly suggest that you don't take anyone's advice on the internet, including mine. The only place you should be getting advice for these kind of problems is by talking to eBay customer service reps. Even though it's very hard to get a hold of one that actually cares and gives you good information, they are the ones that have the information. So take my advice and any advice in the comments with a grain of salt. Since going full-time on eBay, my store has essentially been set up to run and grow on its own. This doesn't mean that I'm hands-off and that there's no effort put into selling. It means that there's not much thought put into it anymore. I have automated a lot of my processes within reselling on the eBay platform. And essentially, all I have to do is go out and find great items, list these items, and then ship these items off to the customers. Basically, all I have to do at this point is put more items inside my store and my bank account continues to grow. This week was no different. Sales were actually up from last month. I found some great items when I was out sourcing at yard sales and thrift stores, and things were looking up. But three problems arose from nowhere: negative feedback, return scams, and shipping defects. I have some other videos that cover negative feedback and return scams in great detail, and I highly suggest you go and check those videos out. So for this video, I'm mostly going to focus on the shipping defects because I haven't really touched on that topic. However, I want to talk about the negative feedback and the return scams just because it shows a common theme with seller support on the eBay platform. I received a message from a buyer who bought a digital camera from me. He sent a message complaining that the battery compartment didn't fully close and he wasn't happy with the item, and he even sent me pictures of the battery compartment with a little bit of a gap in it. This was not something new. This wasn't something I didn't know anything about. In fact, I actually included this in the title, in the description, in the seller notes, and I took multiple detailed photos of this minor flaw. And on top of that, I sold this camera for about 50% of what it would have sold for if it hadn't had this actual flaw. I personally tested the camera fully, putting an SD card in, putting batteries in, taking pictures, making sure it saves, so I know that the camera was tested and working when I sent it out. Now, just because the battery compartment had that little bit of a gap in it, I did disclose that information and I showed it. However, I do know that I sent a working camera, and although the flaw was slightly annoying to look at, the camera was totally functional and working. So when I received his message, it was a little bit of a shock because I was like, hey, how are you complaining? It was literally in the title, the description, and the seller notes, and the photos. And I reached back out to him and explained to him that all of this was shown in the photos, the description, the title, and the seller condition notes. He sent back a message, something along the lines of, he doesn't want someone else's broken garbage, he's not happy with the item, and he's gonna open up a return. I thought, okay, no problem. I accept returns on almost all of the items I sell, and I accepted returns on this item. So I thought, okay, no problem. He wants to return it. He's going to open up a return request and send it back. I didn't respond to that message right away, and within a few hours, he actually sent back another response. This time, he says that the camera is not working, that he went to use it, and it won't take and save pictures. Now, I personally know this isn't true because I tested the item myself. So I thought it was super interesting, and I kind of assumed what happened was he went to go open the return request and realized that I require that buyers pay the shipping back. So he decided he was going to lie about the camera and say that it was broken so he could force the free return. This sucks, but at the end of the day, it was a small digital camera. The shipping isn't a big deal, and I don't even really care. Like, send it back and I'll issue you a refund. So I gave it a little bit of time, and I sent him back a message saying, that's really strange. I personally tested the camera and it was working when I shipped it out, but no problem. I accept returns. Go ahead and open a return request and send the item back and I'll issue you a refund. I thought this was going to be the end of it. I was expecting him to open up a return request, send the item back, I get it back, relist it, sell it again, and I'd eat a little bit on the shipping. Not a big deal. But I didn't hear anything for a few days. And then out of the blue, I got a message from him saying that he threw the item away because it's garbage. And if I'm selling garbage on the platform, then I must need the money more than he does. I thought, this is a weird way to respond to someone saying, like, go ahead and return the item. And this kind of reconfirmed the fact that I think he was just fishing for a partial refund. He bought an item with a clearly described flaw, complained about the flaw, and was hoping that I was just going to offer him a partial refund and not force him to return the item. When he realized that he would have to pay shipping, then he started lying about the item being broken. When I told him that's no problem, I'll still accept the return to send it back, now all of a sudden he threw the item away and he's doing me a favor because I must be poor. At the same time as he sent this message, he also left me negative feedback saying, be careful with this seller. Now that's not even the worst feedback ever, and whatever, it's not a big deal. But I think it's kind of unfair. I clearly described this flaw multiple times in the listing. This buyer is clearly fishing for a partial refund, and I offered him returns, and now all of a sudden he threw the item in the garbage and can't return it. So I went into eBay's feedback appeal request form and I filled it out. I gave it all the information, and within a few hours it sent me back the generic response that eBay always says, sorry, it's the buyer's experience, we're not removing the feedback. I kind of thought, oh well, but I'm gonna give it another shot. So I hopped onto Facebook and sent eBay a message on Facebook. I explained the situation to the customer service rep on Facebook, and they said that they were going to look into it. She looked into it and said that they cannot remove it and that the original appeal stands because it's the buyer's experience, and she recommended that I reach out to the buyer and try to make things right. We went back and forth for a little bit, and I was trying to get at the fact that if this buyer actually threw the item away, which I don't believe he did, but if he actually did throw the item away and we're taking the buyer at his word, what can I offer the buyer to remove the negative feedback? What further steps can I do? So I came out and actually asked her, are you suggesting to me that I should give this guy a full refund without requiring a return just to remove the negative feedback? She responded back with, no, sometimes there's nothing else you can do. And in this case, it seems like there's nothing else you can do to satisfy the buyer. I would suggest that you reply to the buyer's feedback, as that is the best way to handle this. And thank you for reaching out to eBay customer service. Although this is disappointing, I actually kind of agree with the customer service rep. I think that at the end of the day, negative feedback isn't that big of a deal. It doesn't really affect your account. A few negative feedbacks here and there don't matter. And actually, the way you respond to negative feedback can actually help other buyers feel safer with you. If you say, hey, I offer 30-day returns, and then they look at it and they're like, oh, wow, he does offer 30-day returns. You can't make everyone happy, so it's not a big deal. However, when a buyer is clearly complaining about an issue that was clearly shown in the photos, and this isn't up for discussion, like there's clear evidence that the exact problem that the buyer is complaining about is described in the listing and shown in the photos, and then that's what he's complaining about, and he's fishing for this partial refund, it seems like to me that this should be removed. But eBay disagrees, and that's eBay's decision. You know what I like even better than positive feedback on eBay? I like new subscribers. So if you're not already, do me a huge favor and hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss any future content. All right, next up is the return scams. Now I've covered this topic in great detail in this video here with step-by-step instructions on how to deal with the return scams. But it's worth noting that within the last month here, I've actually gotten 2 more of these return scams. One was for a $50 building block game that was brand new and sealed. The buyer received the item, opened up the item, sent me a picture of the building blocks and said that it was broken because they're made of pine. That's literally what he put in the return request. And then he immediately shipped the item back. I thought, okay, I'm getting an open item back, whatever, like it happens. But I thought it was kind of strange. A few days go by and I get a message from eBay saying, please refund your buyer, your package has been delivered. So I go outside and I start looking for the package. I look out on my front porch and I don't see the package. Now, mind you, this is a big box. This was a building block set. It was like 12 by 12 by 12. So it's a pretty big box. It's not like it's just hiding under the mat or something. That's when I looked at my mailbox and found this. This was shipped FedEx. And inside of it, the only thing inside of it was a receipt from TikTok Shop for men's endurance and prostate support capsules. That's it. That's what he returned to me. So, like I talk about in that video here, I jump through the hoops. I actually go onto FedEx's website and I pull the tracking information. I pull the weight and the size of the package to prove that it was sent in an envelope and not in a box, even though the item was very large, as you could see. And I upload all the pictures and I even go and grab a screenshot from my Ring camera of the FedEx driver delivering the so-called package. I give eBay all of the information they could ever need to side with me on this case. So of course, they close this case in my favor and they don't make me refund the buyer. Nah, I'm just kidding. They didn't do that at all. What they did do is they sided with the buyer and then they took all of the money from me and gave it to the buyer, and they kept their fees. They took all of it. They didn't even refund the fees. They kept the fees to punish me for even thinking about opening a case when I got ripped off. Now, they sent me a generic email saying, hey, we're sorry that this happened, but we don't really know who to believe. So what we do is we just take the money and give it to the scammer. Like, even though you sent a bunch of proof and stuff and like photos and like all the tracking information's there, like we just don't look at that. Like, why would we ever do that? So instead, we just give him his money back and reward him, and better luck next time. But like I talk about in the video here, what I end up doing is I end up appealing this, and I go through that long appeal process. It's another battle with eBay. And eventually eBay does make me whole. They give me back my money, but only after they rewarded the scammer for sending me the wrong wood. Now, I actually did do a little bit of digging on the address this was sent to, because I thought this one was actually really crazy because they didn't even send back anything. They kind of sent like a joke back to me. So what I did was I looked up the address and I kind of found out that this address is known to do this. So I went ahead and I filed an IC3 report, and I filed a report with their local police station. I know that that doesn't really get looked into. It really says it right on the IC3 website that they don't have the man force to look into these problems, and the local police kind of don't really care. However, if enough people do it, or if there's a big enough case, they might actually do something, and I want to make sure that I documented that it also happened to me. So I did go through those steps this time. Shortly after that one happened, I actually ended up getting another return scam. This time, it was a car dealership that bought some phones for their office. They got the phones, and I didn't think much of it. 29 days later, I have 30-day returns, mind you. 29 days later, they opened a return request saying that they changed their mind. I thought, that's strange, like why wait until the last day, but whatever. They immediately sent back the package, and what I got back was a box full of the wrong phones, the wrong model, the wrong brand, and these phones were in broken condition. So this car dealership actually thought it was a good idea to scam someone else, which is kind of crazy that they would think that when they send it right to their actual company address. They bought new phones, threw out the old ones in the box and sent them back to me. So at this point, you guys already know I had to jump through the same steps with eBay in order to get my money back. And I went ahead and filed that IC3 and police report. I have sold thousands of items on eBay over the past 4 years. And I've only had this happen 3 times, and it's all been in 2025. It's kind of strange that it's all happening at once, and it's definitely increasing. So I hope this trend doesn't continue. I'm still not at any point where I'm going to change any processes or make any changes to selling items on eBay because of a few scams. I think it's important to note that there's going to be a lot of people that think like if you record yourself packing the item and shipping it out, or record yourself opening the box, like that's going to help and eBay's going to cover you that way. Like, all I have to say is good luck. I've uploaded like actual proof of these scams happening, and eBay will still just side with the buyer. So I think at this point, it's actually just a thing where eBay just sides with the buyer and then handles it later afterwards. I do think eBay is tracking these buyers, and if they do it enough times, they will get removed from the platform. I actually had another package that I had already sent out, and eBay sent me a message saying, if you haven't already, don't send this item out. And then that buyer actually opened a return request right at the same moment that they sent that, for the item that hadn't even been delivered yet. So eBay probably just realized that this person's scamming and that I had just sent them an item, but I was taken care of on that one automatically, which was super nice. The one process change to scams that I am making is I'm putting my foot down, and I am going to file those police reports and IC3 reports. I originally said that it's not really worth the time because I just want to keep my business moving forward. However, for the few minutes that it takes to do these reports, it's well worth it to just have it documented. The more of us that do document these, the more likely these scammers will stop scamming on eBay, because they're going to eventually end up with a police officer or a federal agent at their front door asking why they're ripping people off using the Postal Service. Right around the time I was going through the phony phone scam, I decided to check my eBay account. I do this occasionally. I do this about once a week. I log on to eBay, I check iNads, I check my seller levels, I check my seller metrics, I check my shipping metrics. I check everything and just make sure my account's in good standing. I've never had any issues, but it's just something I like to do. I like to track my return rate so I know if returns are increasing or decreasing. So it's just something I've built the habit of checking. It doesn't take very long to click around and just get an idea of how your business is doing, jot it down into your Excel sheet, and move on to your next task. But when I clicked on my seller level, my heart actually dropped. I saw at the top in red, it said, your seller performance status is at risk in the US. And I thought, crap, what did I do? So I start scrolling, I start clicking, and I'm starting to try to figure out what had happened to my account since last week when I had checked. I scroll down and I see that I have 47 defects for transactions missing on-time tracking or carrier scan. And I think, crap, what happened? I get all my packages scanned. I'm that guy that goes to the post office, stands in line, and makes sure that every single package that's going out every single day receives a postal scan. I do this because I've heard of other horror stories where sellers weren't doing that. The Postal Service misses a few scans, and then their whole account is in danger just because the Postal Service missed the scans. So I start looking at the 47 items, and I'm like, yup, I remember sending that out. Okay, there's a $200 pair of pants. There's a $50 tool. The price point of these items over the last 3 days is a lot. And I'm like, dang, I'm going to lose out on all of this money. And I start looking and I realize none of these packages have been delivered. These buyers are sitting there waiting. eBay's giving me defects and no one said a single thing to me. I'm like, how could this have happened? How can I have sold 47 items? Most of them were supposed to already be delivered. It's like 7 to 10 days since these items were shipped out. And there's no scans, there's nothing. These customers are sitting there waiting for these packages, and it looks like I printed the shipping label and then never sent the item. 3 days worth of sales just gone, just vanished. So I'm panicking. So I click into it and I'm looking at them and I'm like, man, there's no tracking on this one, there's no tracking on that one, no tracking on that one. And then I slow down and I remember, I'm like, well, there's the USPS tracking. So let's click that instead of just looking at the eBay's tracking. And it pulls up the Postal Service. And I see that this particular item was not only scanned within the given amount of time, but it's actually been delivered. It's been delivered for a few days. So I'm like, okay, so why is eBay saying that this item's not delivered? Why is eBay saying this item was never shipped? So now I start digging into each and every single listing. I go through all 47 defects and I check them all on the Postal Service website. Every single one of them received the original scan at the post office, along with probably 5 to 10 other scans as it traveled across the country to its destination. And the vast majority of them have already been delivered, even though eBay's saying that these items are not delivered. So I start to feel relieved because I'm like, okay, so these are just defects now. They're not missing packages. I'm not gonna have to refund people thousands of dollars because I lost these 47 packages. So I calm down and I start looking at my seller account. I realize that I have 11 days until May 20th, which is when they do the seller ratings to get this fixed. I think, okay, no problem. This is some kind of glitch on eBay's end. I'll call them up and they'll adjust these 47 defects and show that these items were delivered, and then my seller level will be fine. So I go to the help page on eBay and I start chatting with the bot and I say, I want someone to call me. The bot is like, no, you don't. Like, why don't you just submit the appeal yourself? And I'm like, okay, fine, I'll submit the appeal myself. I eventually get to the appeals page, which I've never done defect appeals before because I've never had defects before. So I'm on there and there's a bunch of different drop downs and I'm trying all the different combinations of the drop downs to try to find these 47 items, and nothing is showing. Like, it's showing that I have no defects, yet at the top there's a banner that says your seller account is in danger in the US. And I'm like, how can this be? But there's no option to appeal it. So I go back to my buddy over there, the AI chat bot, and I say, hey man, like, I actually need to call someone. And it just keeps saying like, no, you don't, like, go submit the things. And I eventually say it enough that it says, you know what I'll do for you? I'll let you send an email. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. That's really what I wanted to do, was send an email. So I type out an email. I'm like, it's better than nothing. I really wanted to talk to someone and just get this fixed today. So I type out an email. I include all the information. I go into detail about how you have to go into USPS and see that these items were actually tracked and delivered. And I'm like, okay, hopefully that works. Then I go back to my buddy, the AI bouncer at the nightclub. He's not letting me in because I don't meet the dress code or something apparently. But he's super happy that I sent the email. So when I say call me this time after sending the email, he says, okay, no problem. I see that you're super cool. I'll let you into the nightclub. And he says that someone will call me within 1 minute. So I get a phone call from some guy. I explain the whole problem to him. He pretends like he knows what's happening, but I kind of feel like he doesn't. He's saying he understands it, but I don't feel like he understands it. Either way, he keeps telling me that it's no problem. He's submitting a ticket right now and that the ticket will be handled within 72 hours. I'll hear a result and these defects should be removed. At the same time as I'm talking to him, I'm also sending a message on Facebook to eBay saying, here's the problem and everything. Some guy says, oh, I see that you opened up a ticket for that. You should hear something back within 72 hours. So I'm like, cool. Like, they have all the information. There's tickets been opened. 2 different people said that they're looking into it. I should hear something in 3 days. I go to bed that night. I wake up the next morning to an email from eBay. And the email essentially says that I should have done a better job, that it's my responsibility to ship packages on time. And this is what happens when you don't ship packages on time. And I just like kind of lost it a little bit because I was just like, are you kidding me? Like, you didn't look at anything. Like, I told you that, like, it's more than I didn't ship the packages. Like, the packages have been shipped, they've been delivered. Like, you didn't read any of the notes, or someone didn't take the notes. I mean, I sent an email with it all, so you didn't read the email. Whatever it is, like, you didn't do anything. Like, I gave you all the information and you just sent back the generic response of, sorry, we don't remove defects because you should do a better job. So now I have like 11 days to get this fixed before the 20th. And I want to get this fixed. I don't want to lose my top rated seller status because I didn't do anything wrong. I don't think top rated seller status is like that important, but I also don't want to lose something because it's not even my fault. So I look back and I think to myself, I'm saying, okay, well, maybe I didn't explain it well enough. Maybe I didn't really tell them how to get to USPS. Maybe I didn't fully explain it. I'm like, I have to be more clear. I'm going to have to explain it better. I'm like, I'm going to have to just call and get a hold of someone else and really explain what's going on here. I mean, I know this is a glitch. The guy told me yesterday, he looked at it, he's like, yeah, it looks like some kind of glitch. So we both agreed that it was some kind of glitch on eBay's end. It's not like he's like, no, like, you didn't ship them. Like, there's actual proof there. So I'm like, I just have to get the right customer service rep in the right mood, and I have to explain to them the story, and they have to understand it, and they'll take care of it. I really didn't think it was going to be that big of a deal. I mean, like, at the end of the day, like, eBay's going to have glitches. eBay's going to have problems. I just want them to like take care of the problem when I point it out. So I'm going to spare you guys the next couple days, but basically it went like this. I would wake up, I would call eBay, I would explain something to someone on the phone that would kind of understand, and then they would say they submitted a ticket, and then the next morning I would get a generic email saying, do better, you should have shipped the packages on time. And this was just like a circle for a few days. And then I eventually started asking, can I speak to leadership? Can I speak to your manager? Can I speak to a different department? I really need to get to the bottom of this. Like, I'm getting the same messages multiple times. And then it began the game of, let's transfer Travis around from department to department and see if he just gives up. This was one of the most frustrating parts. I would go from one guy saying, okay, I'm going to transfer you to the leadership team. And he would transfer me to someone, and I would say, hey, like, how's it going? I'm like, are you part of the leadership team? He's like, no, I'm part of this team. I'm like, okay, well, I was hoping for the leadership team, but maybe you can help me. And I would explain the situation. And he's like, oh no, I can't do that. That's not my department. Let me transfer you to someone else. And it was just this game of like being transferred and transferred and transferred. Eventually, I got transferred to one guy that seemed to truly understand what was going on. I told him everything. He understood the problem. He understood what he needed to do. He told me he was going to run point on this, that he was going to document everything. He was going to talk to his manager, and he was going to call me back tomorrow with an answer. I thought this was it. I thought this guy had it. He figured it out, and it was just going to take a little bit of time. He told me he was going to call me back. At the same time, I was talking to a guy on Facebook. He actually also seemed to understand. He said, it's no problem. He's taking care of it. Rest assured, it's taken care of. Like, we're going to get these removed before the 20th. It's no big deal. So I kind of went to bed that night saying, like, okay, this is probably going to get taken care of. Well, I woke up the next morning to that guy sending me an email saying that I needed to go in and appeal the defects. And to be perfectly honest, I got super frustrated. Now, I didn't explain to him that I had already went on and tried to appeal these defects myself. So maybe that's on me. But I definitely explained it to multiple reps that it wasn't showing up on eBay's website, that was also some kind of glitch, that it's telling me I have these defects, but I'm also not able to submit any kind of appeal for the defects. So I get that email from the guy, and I'm like, I guess he's not calling, so I have to call back. So I call back and I play the game again of being transferred around. I eventually get transferred to a lady who says she wants to try to get me to the correct department. Now, mind you, this is day 9 of me calling, waiting, sending emails, sending information, sending messages on Facebook, like trying to get an answer. This is day 9 of me receiving generic emails back saying that I should have shipped the items on time. This feels like the 30th person I've explained the story to. But I go ahead and I say, okay, I'm going to explain everything to you. So I explain it all to her, and she says to me, from what I understand is you have some shipping defects. My question to you is, what are you doing to improve your processes so you don't end up with these shipping defects again? And I about lost it. Like, seriously, like, you're going to ask me what I can do better? Well, so after I was done explaining to her that it wasn't me that needed to do a better job, she agreed to transfer me to the correct department. Now, the guy that answered this time actually read the case file and understood what was going on, and he actually knew the guy from the other day that also seemed to know what was going on. So I felt like I was in the right department. Now, he has me try a few things. He wants me to go on and try to do the appeals myself. So I go on and I do that, and I'm like, no, they're not showing up, and I send him screenshots of that. He's asking for a lot of information. He's helping me go through all the steps. He's asking me to give him screenshots of all the steps, and he says he's going to take all of that information to his manager and get an answer on this for me. So he puts me on hold, he goes to his manager, he comes back and he tells me that his manager is sending it off to a team that specializes and is going to look into this and solve this problem. I kind of push back and say, like, I've already gone through this, like, we've opened so many tickets, and he assures me that the team that this is being sent off to this time is actually going to look at it. At the same time, I had sent another message to Facebook, and I got the same guy from a few days ago and said, hey, like, these still haven't been removed. He also answers back and says that he's in the process of handling these, and these are going to be removed very shortly. I go to bed that night, and then the next day I wake up and the defects are gone. It's like they were never even there. And you think I would be excited, but honestly, I was just tired. In the end, I don't know whether it was the Facebook guy or the guy on the last phone call there. I don't know who actually finally pushed it. I don't know whether it was a combination of the two, but at the end of the day, they actually finally did get removed 3 days before the 20th, so I was able to keep my seller status. Well, if you're like me, you might be thinking what I would have done differently or how I should have handled it differently. And to be perfectly honest, I'm not really sure. I don't think there's much else I could have done. I go to the post office and I get items scanned every day. This seemed to be some kind of glitch on eBay's end, and I followed up with it and I actually tracked it all down. So I think staying on top of it was the only thing that made the difference. To me personally, this seems to be a huge issue with eBay. I wish they just had some seller support that you could reach out to and they would actually like have the tools to handle the case. I don't doubt for a second that the guy on Facebook and the two guys I spoke to on the phone that truly understood the situation, I don't doubt that they wouldn't have taken care of the issue if they were allowed to have taken care of the issue. I don't think that the people we talk to on the phone or on chat actually have any of the tools to be able to do anything. They're just a processing center. They take in the information and then they distribute it out to other teams. This kind of creates a little bit of friction because it's kind of like playing telephone. I'll say one thing, he puts a different note in there, and then that other team is busy and they don't even read it. It would be so much better if eBay empowered their employees and allowed them to actually handle some of these minor things. This wasn't a complicated case. This was clearly a glitch. Anyone that looked at it would clearly be able to hop onto the Postal Service and see that these items were shipped on time, scanned on time, and even delivered, and that eBay just wasn't tracking that information correctly. It's super disappointing for me to have spent so much time on the phone sending messages and thinking about this when I could have been using that time to go out and source and list more items and sell more items on eBay, and eBay would have made more money. So at the end of the day, like, yes, it cost me money and time sitting there and doing all this steps. But if eBay empowered their first line of employees to actually be able to handle some of the minor problems, it would empower sellers to list more items, and eBay only makes money if we list items from the fees. So if they want to make more money, they should speed up the processes of getting us back to selling faster. My recommendations if something like this happens to you is, one, don't give up. Like, this took a lot of time, a lot of effort, and a few times I was like, my seller level doesn't matter this much. I really shouldn't be spending this much time. But I kind of stuck with it because I don't like being told that I did something wrong. Honestly, if they didn't send the emails back saying like it was my fault and like the lady on the phone didn't say what can I do better, I might not have been as motivated to say like, no, like you guys are the ones that messed up, like you fix this. So I highly recommend that you stick with it. Eventually you will get to that one employee that actually cares and actually takes the time to look through the things and actually fix the problem. I think most problems on eBay can actually be fixed. It's just you have to get to the right person and you have to be willing to spend the amount of time to get to that person. Number two, document everything. Now, I documented everything because I thought that this might end up being a video, but even if I wasn't making a YouTube video out of this, I would have still been documenting it. I like to document what I did, who I talked to, and when I talked to them. So I called eBay at 12 o'clock on noon and I talked to Mike. I wanted to note that so that when I call back, I can say, look, I talked to Mike yesterday, I talked to Jen the day before, and I talked to Tim the night before that, so that I can tell them exactly what I've done, what we've gone through, and what steps we've already done. So I highly recommend that if you're going through a complex problem like this, to make sure you're documenting everything. Number three, get your packages scanned. I've been doing this forever, since day one, essentially, of selling on eBay. I go to the post office, I stand in line, and I get that carrier scan. I want that carrier scan because it's one of the things I can control. eBay tells you that it doesn't really matter, but at the end of the day, it does matter, because if I didn't have those carrier scans, those defects weren't going away. And I was told that multiple times, that they're glad that they could see that the carrier scanned the package, because if they didn't see that scan, there was nothing they could have done and they wouldn't even have opened up the ticket. So despite what eBay constantly is saying, like you don't need to get those carrier scans, you absolutely have to get those carrier scans if you don't want to end up with a bunch of defects. Now, if you don't care about your seller rating, then it doesn't really matter. But if you care about your seller level and rating, then you actually do have to get those carrier scans. Number four, pay attention to your account. This is probably the most important thing. I don't think I mentioned it yet in the video, but like I didn't have a notification, I didn't get any messages, I didn't get any alerts. There was nothing that told me that this was a problem. I actually, while making this video, went back through to double check and make sure that I didn't miss an email, that I didn't miss a message, that I didn't miss a notification. There was no communication from eBay. You would think that if you were supposed to send out 47 packages across 3 days and you didn't send out any of those packages, and there was no tracking, no carrier scan, and eBay is giving you 47 defects for this, that there would be some kind of alert, something to tell you that like there's a problem. but there just wasn't. So you have to pay attention to this. Don't sit back and assume that eBay is going to let you know if there's a problem. Once a week or whatever schedule you want to get on, I highly recommend that you hop onto a computer and just go through your account. Look at your seller rating, look at any defects, look at any returns, look at your INADs, look at all that information and see if it's all accurate. Because who knows, today it was shipping defects, tomorrow it could be that they could be giving me 10 return requests that don't even exist. So you want to make sure you take those few seconds to actually go through your account and make sure that it's still in good standing. Now, as much as I could sit here and continue to complain about eBay and what a horrible platform and how they have no customer support and blah, 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 and how eBay's the devil and no one should sell on eBay, I don't believe any of that. I think eBay's doing the best that they can do. They're using AI a lot. They're trying to figure it out. There's going to be hiccups. They're trying to help so many customers. I don't know how many customer support tickets they're getting a day, but I'm sure it's a lot. That's why it's hard to get to a customer service rep, because they want to use AI to drive you to take care of the problems on your own. I'm very hopeful that in the future that's how it will be done, that you'll just be given the tools to like submit requests and then teammates will actually look at them. Until then, you have to go through these other steps. I am hopeful though, and I do think that we need to just focus on moving our own businesses forward. As much as we want to complain and sit here and bash on eBay, we can also sit here and bash on our own businesses. There's things that I could have done better in this situation, and there's things that I could have done better in any situation. Anytime I'm getting a complaint from a customer or a return request, I'm not thinking that this customer's out to scam me. I'm asking how I can do better so that next time this doesn't happen. I want to focus on moving my business forward, and I think we all should do the same. If you've enjoyed this video, I think you're going to like this one, so go ahead and give it a click.